Hey folks, today in this video I'm going to show you how I make kydex holsters. Actually, I don't use kydex at all. I use Boulderon. I think it's a little better material to work with, but nothing wrong with kydex. I just choose to work with Boulderon. First thing you'll need is a little oven of some type, whether it's a toaster oven or whether it's a regular oven. I did it for years off a regular oven, but this toaster oven works just fine. I heat my kydex up to roughly 300 to 310 degrees. At that heat, it is real pliable, but yet it doesn't start to distort the sheet of Boulderon or kydex. It stays true to its shape. Once I get it shaped, or once I get it heated up to the temperature that I want, I'll put it in my press and I'll lay whatever gun I'm using on top of it. And as you can see, my press is very rudimentary. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just a square with some good foam in there. I use ratchet clamps on either side. I tighten it down as tight as I can, and I let it sit for anywhere from 7, 10, sometimes 15 minutes. Just let it cool down enough where it'll hold its shape. With this small toaster oven, I have to do one side at a time. When I was using a regular oven, I could do both sides. So what I do is I do the first side. It's usually the bottom side. I always do the bottom side first. I heat up my oven, or heat up my Boulderon in the oven. Once the second sheet's done, I put it on top and I let the holster, I guess you could say, cure. It actually comes out better if you'll do it one sheet at a time instead of trying to do both sides at the same time. I've learned that through trial and error, especially on guns for some reason with lights mounted on them. It comes out better if you'll do it just one sheet at a time. Once it's cured, I'll take it out and inspect it, kind of look it over, make sure it's good, make sure there's no ripples in the kydex. Every once in a while you will get some ripples in the kydex. You can see this one came out good, and I'll move on to the next phase. All right, now I'm going to lay out the outline on my holster for where I'm going to be cutting. Let me pan this down a little bit so y'all can see what I'm actually doing. All right, so I make mine with a sweat shield on the back unless they say otherwise. So first thing I do is I lay my flexible ruler across it, and I draw where the top edge of the holster is going to be. So that's where I'm going to cut, and that's where I'm going to cut. It's probably going to be a little too tall. I can already tell from where the trigger guard is on here. So I'm going to lower that just a little bit. You'll get the hang of it once you've done several of them. Now, I cut all mine for RMRs, so I bring it up on the slide, bring my mark up on the slide, I get my straight edge, and I come up just like that. Now it's cut for an RMR. It's just that simple. Now I will freehand this to follow the trigger guard and up. And you can always, if you mess up with this, it's not a big deal. You can always wipe that line down and go back over it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it a little bit wider. And I'm not going to make this one a super tall sweat guard. I'm going to make it about a mid-length sweat guard. So you can see I've drawn my lines across. I've drawn this line up for my sweat guard, left enough room for my RMR, and then have just a mid-length sweat guard in there. Now, I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to mark the bottom with my straight edge. Come across, just like that. Now I'm going to draw out where I want the edge of the holster to be. So I'm going to come up here, That's about right. I'm eyeballing everything. You're just eyeballing it. Doesn't have to be exactly right, but don't cut too much off because then you'll have to make more kydex. But I just eyeball it. That looks about right. So that's where my holes are going to be. Now, for the back side, what I'll do is I'll trace this around to the edge and make a mark there on the side. I'll bring this around the edge and make a mark there on the side. Now I can flip it over. I've got my mark. I can line my mark up there. I can line my mark up there. Then I'll take my flexible ruler, plastic ruler if you want to call it, that's what it is. I bring it up to the trigger guard. Then I bring it around like that. Now I've got that cut. So now I'm going to freehand around the trigger guard, just like this. And right along there. Then I'm going to bring it down. So I have a low opening in the front. So that's what it'll look like. I don't know if you can see it on there. It comes straight across, up to follow the trigger guard, so there's no gap there, straight across, and then down, so the front will be a little bit lower so you can get the muzzle out a little bit faster. I could bring it down if I wanted to, bringing all this down, but I'm not going to do that. I like these like this. So now I've drawn my outline. Next, I'll cut it. All right, as you can see, I've got this all set up. I've got some clamps on over here to hold the kydex straight so it doesn't move. I cut it before I connect it together. So I'm going to cut this right here, see how it comes out. Video might be a little shaky on this. Stop before I get to the gun. All right, we'll flip it over. Side. Move my clamps over to the other side. We'll cut this side. Try to stay right on the line. Alright. Now let's cut this. Watch your fingers. Cut this bottom part off. Now I got the rough outline going. I'm going to take these clamps off now, and I'm going to go ahead and finish the back. Got the back done. Go to the front. Slow down so these lines will match up, so go slow. And there you go. Now I've got the front and the back. I've got the outline of my holster now. Got a good grip. Let me turn this off. Got a good grip there, so everything's good there. Now I've just got to smooth, or I'm going to connect it. I'm going to connect it on either side. I'm going to rivet it on either side. Then I'm going to smooth everything down, sand it all up, make it look nice and pretty, and then I'll bend my edges. All right, now I'm going to sand it off. You won't be able to hear me over the sander more than likely. Go to the Dremel. As you can see, here's my drill bit. It's got a point on the end so it digs into the polymer and doesn't let it skip off. Let me dig that into the polymer. Back it out. It's important you use really sturdy clamps so that polymer doesn't shift around. Because if it shifts around, then none of your holes are going to line up right, and it's going to be terrible. Now I can take my clamps off, take my gun out, and we'll go over here to the press. All right, so here's my press. I'm going to take my rivets, put them in through the back side. I'm sorry. No. Put them in through the front side. You want the clean edge on the front side. You want the rolled edge on the back side. It just makes it a little more aesthetically pleasing. So take that, put it through on the front, just like that. And now I've got a little tool that I use. I got from knifekits.com. It will, and it's connected to a little 1-ton brace, or press. Just press that. Press that. Press that. As you can see, all my rivets are put in there nice. Every once in a while you get one that kind of, it depends on what rivets you use. I hadn't been able to get the good rivets that I usually use. Every once in a while you'll get one that kind of chips on the end right there, but functionally it's still good and sound. So now I'm going to put my gun back in the holster like that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to clamp everything off just like I did last time, and I'm going to drill the other side. So get my drill. Watch your finger on the back side, because when this drill comes through that pointed tip, it will eat your finger up. Ask me how I know. And then the last one. Now, take that off. Take your gun out. Again, push the rivets through the front side to the back. Line your holes up. And then let's get it on the press and go to work here. Line it up. Press. You don't have to kill it when you're pressing on it, just nice and firm. You'll feel it when it stops. And again, we got them pressed in through the front. Got a nice edge on the front of it. Now I'm going to go back and sand it with my belt sander again. All right, what I'm doing now is I'm rounding these edges off. I'm truing up these edges, truing up this edge, and I've got to cut a piece off on either side, and I'll have to come back and blend that in. Let's get this done. let's go over here and take this corner off real quick. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back and bevel these edges and then polish the flats. So let's get on with that. You notice I've already done it on this part. I do that on purpose because it's hard to do once you get the holster together. So I can do all of this when the holster's already together.
Now I'm going to clean up the flat.
All right, so the holster's pretty much done. All I've got to do is put a bend on either side, and I'll do that here in a minute. Another thing, I don't have to bevel these edges, but it sure looks a whole lot better when you do bevel them. It makes them a lot smoother. It makes them more comfortable on your body. Anything that touches you, like this right here, I'm probably going to bevel that a little more because it sticks out. I always test it before I get ready to give it away. Much better. A holster can be good and functional, but if it's uncomfortable on a person's body, they're not going to wear it. So that's why I make sure before I get done, I run my fingers across it to make sure there's nothing sharp or anything that would irritate someone's skin. So let's move on to the bending process. All right, when I bend my holsters, I simply put them in a vise. That's it. And I use a heat gun. The trick is with the heat gun, you can't just put the heat gun on here and go until it's soft and bend it. If you do, you're going to scald your plastic. And it's going to look terrible. So watch how I do this. I alternate the heat from sides. Here we go. I use this block so that heat is directed away from the areas where I don't want it. I do not keep the gun in there while I'm heating it up either. I take the gun out. The reason for that is I don't want the gun to start to sag in the holster and make the holster loose. Notice I'm alternating sides, slowly heating it up, and I'm pressing on it and kind of feeling it. So it's ready to go now. So what I'm going to do is put my gun back in, and I'm just going to slightly bend it a little bit. There you go. I put my bend in it. That's really about it. I hold it there for, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds, and I take it out. See that bend? Very slight. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. We'll put it in here. Make sure I covered my rivets up. Snug it down. Don't get it too tight. Just snug. I'm going to heat this side up. Alternate that heat. Don't leave it on there too long. Move it back and forth, because if you do, you're going to scald that plastic and it's going to look like an amateur made it. You don't want that. Back and forth. I'm pushing on it a little bit, just kind of getting a feel. I think it's going to be ready. It's ready. Turn that off. Put my gun back in it. There we go. And bend. Hold it here for a few seconds. let it get nice and, or not nice and cool, but it's going to cool down enough to hold that shape. And there you go. You got your bends in your kydex. I do bend the front a little more than the rear. I don't bend the rear as much because I want the belt loop to pull the rear in. If I bend it too much, then the belt loop's not pulling the butt of the gun into your side. But if I just put a slight bend in the front, then that belt loop will pull the butt of the gun into, or the grip of the gun, it'll pull it into your side. That's why I don't put as much of a bend on the back. The front doesn't matter as much, but then when they put the belt on, it pulls the grip of your gun into your side. That's why I do it like that. So, there's your kydex holster. This one is for a Glock 43 or 43X with a Streamlight TLR. Heck, I don't remember which one this one is. It's one that mounts to the trigger guard. But there you go. That's it. That's all you got to do. I'm going to put the mounts on there, and I'll show you that. All right. Here's a holster in its finished form. You notice I use these leather belt loops on here. I do it for a couple of reasons. One, it spreads the weight of the gun out. Even a small gun, it spreads the weight of the gun out. Two, it conceals the gun really tight to your body. And three, it's super comfortable. If your holster is not comfortable, you're not going to wear it. You're going to go to a different one. I will say these are extremely expensive. They're $17 just for the loops. All right, and that's my price, $17. So I charge $55 for a holster. $17 alone of that is in these. I'm not making much on a holster. By the time you take what the rivets cost, the kydex cost, my time involved, everything that has to be replaced from time to time, I'm really not making that much. But they are good holsters. I usually make them for a bunch of friends of mine. So that's how I make a kydex holster. Don't be afraid to get out there and try to make one of your own. Just take your time. It's a learning experience. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.